we on? Good. Welcome to the Better Than Not podcast. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. But when we at least do something, we know it's almost always better than not. Hi there, and welcome to Better Than Not, the podcast that aims to capture shifting perspectives and thought-provoking ideas in conversation, while asking the question, is anything what it seems? It's based loosely on my series, Changing Frame of Reference, which you can read on the Substack app, and I hope you will, as it might give you some insight into what the podcast is all about. I also hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel, Better Than Not, so I can continue to bring you great guests like we have today. I'm your host, Doug Gardam, and today is a pleasure to welcome back. This is first time in video, Siavash Kianpour. Siavash, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. How are you?
We were just chatting here a minute ago, and we went for a long time the first time we did this, so I have anticipation we're going to kind of go through down some of the same roads. Since we last talked, Siavash is working in a new world. He's actually in the sales world, I'll say, of technology. He's in the technological world of sales, which has its own challenges, not to mention trying to keep up with this technology stuff that we keep having to face ourselves. Siavash, is that begins to, like, what kind of stuff are you doing now? Because you're like traveling, you're always curious. And that's one of the things I learned the last time. And what's that kind of like? What are those things kind of going on? Like you were just mentioning, you're doing a lot of traveling. Is it tough keeping up with that in this kind of like the sales part of technology?
Yeah, I have been traveling quite a bit this year. Yeah, I can't even think of what we were just talking about before. I said I was mainly domestic, but yeah, a few times I went overseas too. Yeah, I think it's constantly changing, and with technology, it's always trying to keep up with the latest trends and what's the current state of art, where's the future. So you can always sort of understand which industries are getting stronger, which ones you want to invest in, which kind of core technologies any product are going to be sort of embedded in the business plan of any company. So it's constantly evolving, and really you nailed it with saying kind of curiosity from the last time we spoke. It's just endless curiosity to understand where companies are investing in certain sectors and which sectors are really growing, where you could be really what sector you have an eye on and keep up.
Did you find like working? So previously you worked at Capstrom, and you're working in like the design services area. Did a lot of that kind of background help you in moving into like closer to like technology itself?
Absolutely. I mean, that role, it was design, software, and services, and it was the applications were vast. It can be used across every heavy industry sector. So really, you learn about every sector and how it can be applied to that sector, and really, you're also learning about where really what is needed in the eyes of an engineer. So not only you learn about the applications that it can be used for, but you're also looking for what the pain points are for an engineer and salespeople across any manufacturing organization. And that's really understanding manufacturing and understanding the end-to-end from product development all the way to sales for any manufacturer and what their pain points are. It lets you really speak to any language and to anyone in the world.
Because it's in a way it's universal. I was going to say I have to kind of probably interject here, because when I was I did a podcast with Paymon the last time, and he brought up this, I'll call it forming, storming, norming, and performing. And it kind of blew me away in a recent podcast that I did, is the same thing was brought up in a psychological sense, in the world of psychology. And the reason why I'm bringing it up right now is, does that carry over and help you to work with the engineers that you're working with now? Like, or is that something that you're connected with? Because it was like, I thought it was so interesting, Siavash, because this was one of the things came out back in the 60s, and it was
Hmm.
done in the psychology world. I think the guy's name was Bruce Buckner, and I was kind of blown away that it was that you kind of brought that into the design world, because it's very, very real. Like, does some of that kind of work for you?
Hmm. Hmm. Are you referring to the concept of forming, storming, norming, performing?
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
just, because when we had the conversation, I'm sitting there and going like, that's a almost rules for life,
Hmm.
and how it fit into the design world. So in the technology world, I'm thinking, man, we would gain a lot if we paid a lot more attention to that process.
Yeah. I mean, it really for any interaction with um, ideas, it really goes down to even product development or even any sales process, forming, storming, norming, performing. Right? When you first interact, it's no different than really what we in the sales what we call sales funnels, right? When you have discovery, initial outreach to kind of follow up discussions to some sort of contractual discussion all the way to contractual execution. So that same follows the same format of forming, storming, norming, performing. So in your own head, as I'm sure you're referring to, having that brain power to follow those steps for any process. It goes for, you know, interpersonal, or interpeople, you may call it, behavior activities as well.
For
Whether
sure.
you're doing in sales or you're, you know, trying to plan a trip with your partner. So it's really, it can go for anything, I feel.
It's kind of universal in many ways. So I know I interjected my own thought in there right now, but I was trying to think.
Mhm.
So
No, it's fine.
what kind of I'll say technology stuff you get involved with now?
Yeah, so I'm still very much heavily focused on industrial and manufacturing technology. So anything from software used for design to all the way to semiconductor chips that are going to be used in vehicle, to a machine on the factory floor. Really, it's just that. So anything from software, hardware, but ultimately any embedded, or enabling technology that helps companies reduce costs, improve performance, increase revenue, accelerate time to market, enabling technology that helps them in any of these aspects. So I help some of these I talk to these companies and I help them expand abroad, sell their products to different markets, to companies in different markets, uh, specifically APAC focus.
Wow. So are you seeing like, I'll say, obviously the world has changed, I'll say, quite a bit, like in the matter of even 10 years. So whether we're talking about I'll call it social media, the access to, well, just like simply like a podcast like we're doing here, that communication level, to the latest kind of buzzword is the AI stuff and how artificial intelligence is chasing that. In your world, are you finding that like um, not a challenge, but like something that's fun and just kind of drives your curiosity to where you can imply it?
Absolutely. I think it's something that I've been looking into a lot lately, really the past few months, is how are these AI tools going to help or challenge us as people who work in, front facing jobs like sales. So lately there's a lot of tools out there, like they call them AI sales agents. And these are these are tools that send out. They really started with first with chatbots, more on a customer service side. So really being
Okay.
able to respond to inquiries. I think that was really kind of the entry of AI for customer service or for facing interaction. Now they're taking a level step above where they're bringing AI sales agents for sending out outbound emails. So really prospecting, we call it, and then being able to take those prospects to a meeting where you can get an actual person in front of them. So really doing all that legwork. So there's a lot of tools out there, a lot of tech companies that are now building AI sales agents. And now some are even taking a step further and they're building, they're making automated phone calls for you. So if anyone picks up, they'll transfer to you and then you'll take the call. So there's a lot of these tools, and for companies that are focused on kind of mass sales, it works for them. For companies that really prioritize kind of personalization of the email, it may not work as well. Although you can still, I'm sure, personalize even with the AI sales agents. But so it's complementing, also somewhat challenging our main roles for people who are, let's say, just their job is to book meetings, let's say.
Right.
But there's always still, I keep saying it, and I think it's going to stay true still for the next, I don't want to say a couple of years, because things change like tomorrow. So let's say for the next couple months. But I think that human element of being able to speak to somebody and somebody wants to be sold to by an actual person, that can, at least in the B2B world, that's going to be hard to replace. So when you're selling to CEO or a director of a company and you're trying to sell them under $100,000 contract, they don't want to be talking to an AI. They want to be talking to someone.
So when you say that, Siavash, is that something that, like, I've often said the whole part of doing this kind of business, and not so-called massive business in your sense, but when you're dealing with, I think you put 100K on the thing, but level of products. But when you're doing those types of things, is it kind of pretty universal that people want to talk to people? Because I really get the sense that that relationship is still very big, despite a lot that we hear. Is that kind of what you found too? Like, kind of as you just described, or is that kind of more on the individual basis? How do you see that?
Could you repeat the question? Is it more on business?
Like, is
side?
the relation, do people, you kind of said that people want to talk to another person. They don't want to talk to an automated voice. And we hear so much of the automated voices, but most of that is in kind of smaller business, right? Whether it be access to your phone or internet or whatever. But when you're into like deeper business, you use the number 100K. Are people still really wanting to talk to another individual versus that automated sense that, well, now we won't have to talk to anybody because it's all going to be AI?
Yeah, I mean, when you have a lot of money on the line, they want to have someone they can trust and know that when that 100K hits the fan, as they would say, they have someone to call and they can rely on. So I think with B2C, more people, let's say, who are selling to individuals, not businesses per se, can rely more on AI throughout the entire sales process.
Okay.
So any type of company that has a website that they're downloading, they're downloading a desktop software that maybe is, has a freemium version where they have a free version, then they have maybe a premium version where it's still priced somewhat low at, let's say, $10 to $100 per month. These are things where, if you don't necessarily need to have that in-person engagement where you can take the bet and say, if it doesn't go wrong, well, I don't necessarily need to have that customer support because I can just, I can always cancel. And,
right.
I can take that risk because it's not that much money. But when you're still selling as a business, you're selling services or you're selling a product or technology to another business, especially when it's a new technology, or it's not something that needs to be evaluated over a longer term before placing before ultimately placing a high order on it. Um, I think that needs in-person
Yes.
interaction. So it comes down to really the technology or service that you're selling, and that's that's it's just different, very different between B2B
Yeah.
and B2C.
Interesting. It's neat that you kind of denoted that because, like, it kind of went down the AI world, but I'm finding AI super useful to do things that I don't really like to do.
Yeah, I
So,
mean it's it, it's doing a lot of the legwork in the back end. Like I use ChatGPT every day,
really,
maybe almost an hour a day, and it's just
really,
for doing just market research. It's just understanding, what, as I was saying, I think in the beginning, where's the future of, what sectors are growing, what sectors are declining, and what technology and what is and how to do background research on companies and products and understanding technology. It spits out an explanation in a matter of seconds versus what used to take me maybe an hour to research. So it's unbelievable. It's really that's really that really changed. I think changed the game for a lot of professionals that are really relying on reading articles or papers or just online databases. It just evaluates everything and gives you exactly the answer to your question. It, with references and use cases and examples, it's beautiful.
I do. I find it kind of like unbelievable. Like it's because having been down the other, and like you said, like, and I think you're probably minimizing it. It'll take you an hour of research that you can get in seconds now, but it's like days it would take to find information out, and it's hard. It was hard to find it. Like even like I get frustrated now when like I get a book and I'll say a printed book. I still prefer to read a printed book. But when I want to go back and I want to find something, and I do this all the time now, I really want an electronic copy of that book, not to read, just so that I can find that word or that expression.
Mhm.
And it's kind of frustrating because my eyes don't work as effective as like going back and saying, "Can you find this in the book?"
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Go ahead. Yeah,
no, to me it's those things that I just said like I don't want to do them. I just want the information.
yeah.
And I find it kind of like it's an amazing thing to me that you can ask virtually any question you want and get an answer that can help you doing whatever you're doing. And it was something that I never really thought was going to be happening until my daughter shared with me she did her CV and she got Chat GPT to do her cover page. And it was like
Unbelievable.
that just embodied like nobody wants to read that wants to write your cover page, right? Like the cover sheet, the front page of
Yeah.
your CV. You've just
Mhm.
finished all the detail information. Who wants to summarize it? I don't like summarizing, period, anyway. And it can just do that instantly
Yeah. It's
and probably better than I'm going to be able to write myself.
yeah. That's the news where I probably write a cover page or resume or your essay better than you could. I don't know how schools are managing that. I've been in school for what 10 years now, so we didn't have that 10 years ago, and it wasn't a problem. But now I don't know how schools are are managing that
Well, that was going to be my next question
or
for you
enforcing it.
is
Let's say.
like how so I was going to say one of the things that I find kind of interesting was like when like compare one author's work against another author's work as an example. That would be like write a 1,000-word essay to compare one author to another author. And that would be like a typical question in I'll say a university program, right? Like comparing in literature or something. And I didn't like to do those things at all because they just seem so useless.
Mhm.
Now, did I want the information out of them? Yeah, that'd be fun, but I didn't want to go having to find that. And that's to me why, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, now you're in the business world, technology, and just like how that is changing. And then how are they going to, like, we've always had, everyone's like, cheating's been available in school forever, right? Now you just add another level of it. It's almost like we got to, you're going to have to come up with better questions that help you think versus summarizing or listing, so to speak.
Yeah, your questions have to be, well, to be honest, the ChatGPT can answer anything. So it's really, you can't have online. I think COVID was an issue because everyone was using ChatGPT to get tools to help them with their questions. Um, but yeah, everything is really, I mean, they're still doing in-person exams on the problem, right? Because you don't have ChatGPT by your side. But
Yeah.
so it's really, I think, an issue for, let's say, take-home assignments or essays or online exams, somewhere where it's not proctored, or even if it is, even if you have a camera looking at you in front of your screen. I mean, kids get around.
I think, like, do you hear about that? Like, I don't know whether you're in the mode where you're working with, I'll say, kind of fresh out of school engineers or people like that, but like it's just, and it's changed so quickly. That's the other thing, right? Like, it took a long time to kind of move from, I'll say, a drafting board to 3D modeling on a computer. Chat GPT has come out in what, 3 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so fast to have happened. And
Mm-hmm.
to your point, being able to use it like
Mm-hmm.
very effectively in what you're doing, that would have taken you like literally days, hours, if not days, to compile that information.
Yep, absolutely. It's really changing. I mean, it's really a tool that doesn't just, it's not just a tool that's created and nice to have. It solved the problem that people didn't know, right? So it really was a category defining product. It really opened a new category.
Oh yeah.
And this was something that people didn't know they needed, right? Like there's just really a once in a generation type of company, or maybe not once in a generation how fast things are going, but once in a decade or half a decade type of company. So it's a company like OpenAI, and now it just set a new precedent. Right now, Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, now you have all these companies that are trying to replicate the same thing. But there's something, and they're good. Perplexity, you have tons of these tools that similar tools. Obviously, you talk to each of them, and they'll have their own. They'll all say that their models are better or faster or more accurate and things like that. But there's always something about being the first, right?
Oh yeah.
Always like Uber is, doesn't matter. There's Lyft and there's tons of other rideshare in different markets that Uber's not, maybe is in, but maybe not as popular. But everyone will still remember Uber, right? And that's something that just being the first, Uber will have that strong market share.
You brought it. This is kind of a neat thing because with you being having traveled, when you mentioned Uber, I can't help but think like they did change that for sure. Like it's kind of crazy. I do feel the long-term strategy for Uber is driverless. And that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of my question when you said first to market, because I'll go way back to my beginning in like Lotus 123. You probably don't even remember.
No.
So Lotus 123 was the first spreadsheet before Excel.
Wow.
And I don't,
Okay.
and I do think Microsoft kind of bought or incorporated, like what Lotus 123 did was exactly what Excel does today. And I don't even know, does anybody even use Excel today? There's probably a whole bunch of different kind of tools to make those things work. But the reason why I bring that up is when you said first to market, like ChatGPT, that's a measure, Uber. And now I'm thinking like, well, Waymo, I don't know how close you are to the driverless car world, but they're kind
Mhm.
of the first. And they're the one you hear always with the cyber car from Tesla and so on. But have you had any firsthand experience with that technology?
I've, I mean, I don't know if I've read in the road in a self-driving car a couple times, but not often. Like I've maybe done it a couple times my lifetime so far.
Right. But
But
you have done it?
I think I think I've done it a while ago. Yeah. As like a test drive. I think maybe I was at a trade show or something. I did
Oh, okay.
a
Okay.
test drive around. But I haven't. I'm not really. Well, we don't have them in Toronto yet.
No, no, no.
They're really being piloted all across the U.S. and other countries. But maybe they're in Vancouver, West Coast, but I'm not sure.
No, actually they're right now like Uber. They're banned in BC. When Uber first came out, it was banned here in BC.
Okay,
And
interesting.
so it's banned. Like I can't believe Uber, Siavash. It's like I can literally, like, on my phone pretty much any time of the day, I can have an Uber in my front driveway in a minute.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I can't believe how low cost they are. And well, here's an idea for you. Like we're in Abbotsford. We're in I would definitely a growing city for sure. It's got a bus system. And I kind of wonder whether the cost of a bus system, like just like however many buses you would have in your fleet, the overall cost, what you get for fares. I sometimes wonder whether if you could incorporate somehow an app for those people that are taking public transport to take Ubers, it would be cheaper.
You mean their total if we just remove public transit
Yeah,
altogether? Like,
I'm not saying like Toronto or downtown Vancouver with the subway or the SkyTrain, but when
mm-hmm.
you're trying to develop a community with, and it's a smaller community, your first bus system.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I think it fits into the AR world and the technology world, is that I'm sometimes wondering whether it would be lower cost to just, rather than you paying a fare to get on the bus, you would pay a fare via like the Uber system because it's literally right on your phone, right? And they
Yeah,
brought that cost down. And I sometimes wonder, like, if you're going to subsidize, then subsidize the taxi then and not pay
yeah,
the overall cost of a bus.
yeah. I think that that's just like what I never thought of that.
Well, I just throw it out because I thought it was like, that's why, because it's always curious talking to you because you've always got a different perspective on how to look at things. And this kind of occurred to me because I'm like, when you put a bus on a main thoroughfare, it always slows the traffic down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when
Mm-hmm.
you're in a smaller community, the bus ridership on that is not usually a full bus like it is on the TTC, right? Like,
No, yeah,
so
yeah. A lot of MPC,
I'm
a
kind of,
lot of dead,
yes,
yeah,
I'm
dead
kind
cost.
of excluding a major city. But would it be, in the end,
I
would it
mean,
be something like with all the changing technologies you had, like who would have believed, I'll say even 10 years ago, because we carry smartphones then, that you'd be able to just literally in a matter of a few like touches on your phone get a taxi to come to your front door and watch it on the screen. Like
yeah,
it's kind of crazy, right?
yeah. And
So
you don't
now,
have
like,
to. The
yeah,
payment part is all seamless. You know, you don't even have to open up your credit card. You don't have to. You don't have to negotiate with the driver about the fare, right?
exactly,
And
excellent.
you don't care if they're driving fast or slow. You don't care. You know that it's 20 kilometers and this is what it's gonna be. It's gonna be $42 or whatever, right? So
All the guff is gone.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
kind of, in a way, it's kind of like Chat GPT doing the cover page for your CV.
mm-hmm.
Like it's this,
Exactly, exactly.
it's doing something that you don't really want to do, but you have to do it because of the limitations on the technology. So that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
why, like, I was kind of going down the driverless world, is because it's, that to me is symbolic again of another technology that's happening that's for sure going to cross things, right? And
Yeah.
it's just like and I with you doing some of your traveling, whether like have you kind of been connected with that, but not yet, you said.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, to be honest, my view on full self-driving is that it's not, for passenger vehicles, it's not really solving the problem. It's really, for, the, and I mean, there's billions of dollars being invested in. There's tons of companies that are
Oh yeah.
building software and hardware for self-driving vehicles. But I think self-driving vehicles need to be more tailored to industrial machines, industrial vehicles like excavators, off-highway machines where you have less people interaction. So if something goes wrong, it you're not you're not taking away a life. You're less chance of taking away a life or endangering somebody else's life. Whereas self-driving passenger vehicles, how many lives have already been taken to get to a stage right now where we can say that it sort of works, right? To get to that level 5 stage where they say
Yes,
this
yes.
is full self-driving. So I don't know if it actually solves the problem because if you're going to be in the car, you might as well drive it, right? Like you don't think that's something that we should really be taking that away from people.
Interesting.
Well, I'm trying to
Interesting.
understand what is it like? What is it really freeing your time up? Is it really freeing your time up to sleep in the back of the car, to to send to send a text, to do your work on your laptop, or if you're
Yes.
do your homework, if you're a university, your post-grad college student or whatever. What is the problem really freeing up for full self-driving passenger vehicles? So that part is I'm not really
You're not sold on that.
I'm not sold on it. I think that it's more. I think the pull is going to be more so for industrial vehicles where
Interesting.
you
Okay.
have less person interaction, and actually where there's actually maybe solving a problem in terms of shortage of drivers. So there's a lot of push, I think, now to commercial vehicle self-driving, where there's a lot of shortage of drivers, and that is the problem that it solves when you have less drivers on the road for commercial vehicles. But at the same time, that's still an on-road, on-highway vehicle, and it it doesn't change lanes as much. It only drives on the highway for most of its journey, from the warehouse
Mm.
to the other warehouse, wherever it's going. But it's a good middle ground where it actually solves the problem in terms of shortage of workers, which is the point of self-driving. You don't need a person,
Right.
but at the same time, it's still an on highway on road vehicle, so you still have the issues of being around other drivers and all these other passenger vehicles. But the fact that it's not swerving through side roads because you're an 18-wheeler, so it's a little more, you could say it's a bit more safe. So I think that's the middle ground, and it's sort of the same way with electric cars, right? We all push battery electric cars, and then we realize kind of, oh crap, we don't have, enough charging stations, the range is too low, and there's been a lot of improvements now. Now you can get a battery car and there's stations everywhere, and battery range is high now. But at some point they scaled back and said, okay, let's scale back. We still need that engine in the car, so let's go and I think mild hybrid or plug-in hybrid cars sort of were that good middle
Mm.
ground that took off because you're still not solely relying on the battery. You still can rely on the engine once the battery depletes. So I think it's like people we shoot for kind of what the vision is, and then we realize that, oh shit, maybe we can't hit that. We gotta scale it back. So somewhere in the middle.
Interesting. Man, you just brought up a whole bunch of points because I was when you were saying about excavating, because right now here we're doing TC1 is out of Vancouver is expanding from 2 to 3 lanes each way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's obviously creating lots of traffic. It's going to take a long time to do it. But they've brought a lot of excavators in, right? Like that's like I often when I see this I often think, man, wow, I'd go through for excavator school to drive an excavator because there seems to be work everywhere. We're always going to be building. And but to your point, like it's kind of in a way like, well, I think of a people say, "Oh, I want to drill." No, you don't want to drill. You just want a hole. A drill is your way to get the hole. And I think what you just said, you don't really want an excavator. You want a hole in the ground, or you want to move this mound. And if you could have a way to move that mound without having to have an operator and an excavator, you probably would do that, to your point, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't thought of that before. Like, I hadn't thought of like having those set up as driverless vehicles.
You still would need the excavator. It's just trying to get
Yes.
somebody to, is whether you have somebody in there or not. And I think excavators are still a very hard process, still very particular, and you're going through uneven terrain, and you're dealing with a lot of different types of movements. It's not just so many different functions. You know,
Yes.
the bucket the actual arm and the bucket can move in so many different directions. So it's actually hard to automate that part, but overall, I think the concept of being away from other people is
Right.
is why I think the construction machines, forestry machines, agriculture machines, like think about maybe the shortage of farmers, or less people that are going into farming.
Yes.
So
Yes.
like there's a lot of autonomous vehicles and autonomous surface vehicles, like road vehicles, but also aerial vehicles. Like we're seeing a huge increase in drones. I was at a drone trade show back in May, and
Wow.
yeah, I mean, drones are blowing up across the use of for different purposes, mostly for defense, because it's sort of a low cost way to spy on the
Yes.
enemy, but also for actual let's say uses for commercial civilian uses, commercial uses. So
Well, I remember when
for
like
agriculture, things like that.
I remember when Jeff Bezos came out that said that Amazon is going to start delivering packages via
Logistics, yeah.
and I thought, I like everybody's getting kind of excited about it. It's to me, it's not so much the point that a drone's going to deliver your package. It's what that thought thinking starts to open up in your head because you're no longer it's kind of like your excavator or being driverless.
Mm-hmm.
You now don't have to build a compartment for a person to operate it from as
Yeah.
or any kind of construction equipment, any kind of farm equipment. And likewise with a delivery system that's like that, you now can come up with ways that don't require an operator to deliver a package, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's just you now think of things way different
Mm-hmm.
than what you would have done thinking, well, I got to have a truck, I got to have a person to go to the door. Now, what's really interesting to me on that one, and I picked deliveries in particular, is we have a big warehouse in Tawasin here, Amazon warehouse. We can almost order in the morning and have it in the afternoon.
Wow.
It's
And
what scares me,
same
Siavash,
day shipping. That's really same day shipping. It's not a lie.
it is like when I think of this, like it bothers me a little bit because I know I'll call them machinations that have to go on in order for that to take place. But it's like if I order at 10 o'clock, just the other day, and I know it depends on what you're ordering, it was at the door when I opened the front door.
Mm-hmm.
Like
It was. It was there.
it was there.
You opened 10 a.m. You ordered it, and
10 p.m. 10 p.m.
10
the
p.m.
night before,
before.
and it was at the house before 8 o'clock.
Wow. And that's not even there are no business hours. There's no even it's not even one business hour, right? Like 9 a.m. is the start of the next day. So
Well,
I
this
guess
is
there's
like I know it wasn't delivered by a drone, right? Like I know that. I know it was. I'm certain it was a person. I'm certain they had a vehicle,
yeah.
and it's like ordered on your computer. It had to go through all of that, go to a warehouse with however many thousands of items in it, pull it out, put it in a truck, and send it out here. Like that's without a drone.
Yeah. Actually, I read that Amazon sort of set that precedent, sort of like Chat OpenAI set the precedent for instantaneous answers to your questions. Let's say, because I don't want to say search because Google started with instantaneous search, but
Right.
your questions, right? Any kind of information that you need, specific information is right there to your services. With Amazon really set the precedent with same-day shipping. That was actually, I think I read it somewhere. That was a lot later. They actually lost a lot of money, but they did that just to set a new
The new
precedent
standard.
and
Yep,
new
absolutely.
standard and really, wipe out their competitors because now competitors all have to meet the same sort of new standard or same day shipping or else they wouldn't go with them. So now, like you've seen all these big box retailers just go out of business and over the years during COVID, or the ones who lasted and survived are the ones who really were able to adapt to kind of e-commerce to same day shipping. Not just online shopping. Like, same day, immediate shipping. If it's more than a few days, I think people these days they just won't even.
Well,
they don't buy.
you know what? Like, I already feel that way. Like, I'm already like when I'm like I'll go. I might even choose a different product because I can get it tomorrow, according to their delivery. So it's like, and when you say of the technology, like I can remember I'm going to go back probably 20 years, 30 years when Walmart came up with the satellite ability to measure their inventory. So they could see their inventory across all the stores. And this is like a while back. This isn't like recent. And I can remember, and I could be like, this could be wrong numbers, but I'm thinking of like Sears as an example. That's in recent history. They were looking at inventory turns, and I think they were trying to get up to 12 turns a month as an example, right? That would be doing great. And then they compared it to the turns Walmart was doing, which was 10 times that. You're not going to win. You're not going to win, right? Like
what do you mean by terms exactly?
So that's like that they like once it's on the shelf and then somebody buys it. That's how quickly it turns, right? Like it turns around. Like
yeah.
And if you're doing 12 turns a month, so you sell 12 products, meaning that have come off the shelf, and you're competing with somebody that's doing that 10 times that. Like you're not you
No.
And that's kind of like with the Amazon thing. Why I'm using that is because it just like where is the end? And it's like, and you've mentioned so many things on the technology side. This is why, to me, like where AI is going to be so interesting to see how it moves through different industries as people. I don't. When I say that, it's not going to sequentially go through different industries. I think it's all happening at once, to be honest.
But it's setting a precedent for kind of immediate results, and it's or doing sort of the thinking for you, in some ways. So I think it solves the problem, but at the same time, it also, there's a byproduct of it. So with any automation, you're going to have some sort of removal and eliminate jobs altogether. So that really, Amazon was not in the business of creating jobs in a way. They eliminated a lot of jobs, right?
This is the balance that kind of starts to happen from a societal perspective, right? Because you think, like I can remember back in my early days, about lots of people were going to work for automotive companies, right? Because you were putting like bolts on tires and on wheels, and how an assembly line built a car. And like that's almost gone now, right? Because it's all robots. Like, and you kind of like, we weren't really, as humans, really built properly to assemble things, right? Like that's not what we're good at by and large.
Well, and yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's as any robots, they don't take lunch breaks. They don't take vacations. They don't take holidays. They don't
and
complain.
They do exactly what they're told every single time. to a
Yeah.
precision you can't even imagine as a human being, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's however many years ago. And now you're seeing that continually go on because as a human, like our brains just don't, I don't think our brains work that way. We're forced to
Mm-hmm.
work that way because, like, obviously we have to have a wage, we have to have an income, we have to have a living. And that's,
Mm-hmm.
I'm bringing this back because I want to come back to the drone show, but because it's part of this whole talk. But do you see that, or is that part of discussions that you're part of in that in this I'll call it B2B of technology business world?
Mm-hmm. The, the concept of AI and
Yeah,
being used across.
like the human part of it. It's like, well, yeah, this is great. You don't have to go back and research this, but that was a person's job before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of technology companies I'm talking to a different company. It was a robotics show, and that's all about automation. And then other robotics and automation, they have standard components that are used for components like motors and stuff that's used in robots. But now there's a lot of shows that are just specifically for robots, right? And they call them now humanoid robots, where they look like people and they're replacing that manual labor work that you would do on a shop floor. So
yes,
putting screwing something together, or moving a frame from one part of the shop to another. Just manual work that let's say can be trained by a robot to do. But there's to get there, it takes obviously millions and let's say billions in investment by all these
yes,
companies together, and then all the research that goes into it by other associations that are involved in the universities, nonprofits, like incubators, academia, and there's all institutes that are all going into researching how to use robotics across different sectors. But um, once it's being used, and it is now, though, there's a few humanoid robotics companies in North America that have really blown up and are now piloting their robots in automotive plants. Um, and these are all technologies that it's all, as we say, they're they're reducing costs for them, right? Because they said they don't have to hire 500 people on that floor to do certain manual process. But still, I think there's the oversight on if something goes wrong with these robots, like you can't have a robot overlooking that robot, right? So not yet. So you still need
interesting.
you
Yes,
still need people to keep a real eye on them, not an artificial eye, to really monitor the process, because there's always something, let's say short circuits, or there's the business system doesn't detect something and it gets stuck. It can't. It gets stuck. The arm gets stuck, or let's say the power goes down in a certain station of the line, and the robot stops working. It's always going to be constant disruption, and we have to calculate that. Look at piloting over here, and I think that's how these companies do when they pilot any type of new automation. Really, was it able to increase your throughput or your yield, as opposed to having a manual process and then calculating the cost of that salary and time, your time working, let's say 8 hour shifts of people on a shop floor versus actually the leasing cost of that new robot and having to train it and really compare which one was able to produce more parts, or let's say or subcomponents of whatever they're building. I think it's it's we're still in the piloting phase. I think in 10 years, maybe we won't see a single person on the shop floor doing the manual work just having supervision. But it's still a lot of let's say sort of things you got to iron out before you deploy that scale. This is really solving, I think, really a problem. We have shortage of workers for manual assembly. But then going back to this full self-driving, is that something that is going to be used at scale? Will everybody want to sit in a car and not drive it? That's the question. I don't know. But will companies who build things be rather using robots than people? I think more so than not. So it's at the end, the technology, the faster it gets adopted is really due to the necessity. So it's really all of the people can see how it helps them, as opposed to, okay, let's try it because this is it's new, and let's try it just for the hell of it because it's new, but we don't know how to
Yes.
use it. That's gonna, at some point people will try it and out of the interest and your curiosity, but they may just give up if they can't find an actual use case for it. So you really have to sort of build something that at the end of the day people need, or else it will be hard for it to be adopted.
Well, it truly has to be functional. You kind of mentioned this
Yeah.
earlier on about kind of the novelty of it. And that to me is the driverless car still. It's like I'm asking you not because to get like one or how that would work, but like the novelty of have you ridden in one? That was like that's the concept that I'm saying. Whether it's good or not, it's going to be we're hard pressed to say that right now because it's just so still at the infant stages of it.
Yeah, it's still
And
very, very early.
but you said with AI and like with the whole chat GPT, that was kind of what brought this whole conversation on about kind of being the first here with it. That appears to be like that's not going to go away. Like it's not like, oh no, I'd rather go back to the library and go and research my stuff on a card deck. Like that's just not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And
No.
and the fact that you can do this arduous, shall we say, research. Now, some people like it, but that's not, doesn't, I like getting the answers and asking the questions. I don't like the in between part because sometimes I find, and that's why I find, like, I use, believe it or not, I use Grok a lot. Grok, like on X, and I find like it's tremendously useful. And it's learning as I do like the questions. Like if I'm trying to find something, in fact, I will use it more than I would use asking a question to Google now, just because it comes out with explanation. Like when I'm researching something that I want to write about, I almost routinely now go to Grok just because I like the format it gives me, and it gives me something like I can check too, right? Like, oh, that doesn't sound right. It adjusts the answer as you answer it. So like that's become like one of the things that because it's just there on my phone, right? Like it's very easy to kind of go to. But I'm always intrigued when and so kind of going back to what you were saying, we don't know this about driverless cars yet, right? Because it's just too early. Like it sounds neat. One of the questions I was going to ask because you're in a different demographic than I am. Do you like are your friends or people that you know of, do they like when we, for example, I mean, I know you're not 16 and trying to like I was at the driver's licensing thing the day after my 16th birthday. Like I wanted to be in a car. I talked to like my nephews, a few I've heard. What's your demographics older than that? Like what's its view on driving? Like is it just part of
Yeah, we're right at the cusp of wanting to drive. So when I was 16, I right away 2 days later I got my G1.
Okay.
So I was able to drive with mom or dad beside me. But I think now, yeah, new generation it's not. I don't know what the reason is, but yeah, I think it's not as interesting. Yeah, I think maybe the whole concept of shared mobility, and I think new generation is very health conscious and climate conscious.
Yeah.
So they do things a bit differently than millennials.
For sure.
The millennial demographic, the Gen Zs, I find are a little more. They think they look at the world differently in a way than millennials. So yeah, I don't see them jumping on, getting a car, or doing things that traditionally that people would do in a lifetime. As you can see from a lot of them are even our age. We're getting married later, having kids later. It's more so. Yeah, I think the concept of being more a different type of lifestyle,
Yes.
your lifestyle, than having to pin down on getting driving and then owning a car and having a car. More so being less 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 assets or less goods, but more let's say freedom and more
Right.
freedom, being healthier, and then ultimately, up until now, cars were, let's say, the highest, were the highest source of greenhouse gases. So I think being also climate conscious is a big part of how Gen Z see the world. That's just my view. I mean, maybe any Gen Z might listen to this really go against what I say, but I can just be it from just my opinion.
Well, I think at one point in time that when the driverless started to become kind of prominent about a year and a half ago, we were starting to hear about it because Waymo was doing their first thing, and I think it was Cruise. They were just becoming available in San Francisco, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the thoughts that crossed my mind, knowing some of that, was would we get to a point where we just had a subscription for a vehicle? Meaning that like you didn't own a vehicle, you would just pay a monthly fee, and whenever you wanted it, that vehicle would just appear when your dentist appointment. It would appear in front of your house, whatever time it had to be before your appointment, and you would just pay a subscription rate
Mm-hmm.
for that. I mean, it's hard to see that today, but yesterday going to Vancouver and fighting through all the traffic, it certainly was. That would have been a nice option.
Yeah,
But
I see that. Yeah, I think I think that's a good business. I'm not sure if it's something able, someone could kind of work some car on demand. I mean, yeah, you drive yourself, not necessarily an Uber, but someone driving you. You're able to rent a
yes,
car on demand.
and
I think
yes,
yeah, I think there is that.
I think there are a few doing something that's similar to that. And it's like it just becomes like you said, like a car on demand is because
Mm-hmm.
when I start to think about how you were talking about um, like the climate part of it, right? And putting that together. When you look at a car and not as a machine, it's probably the most underutilized machine there is. Like
Yeah,
when
it's
you're
yeah.
trying to put a plant with robots in it, you want them running 98% of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
A
Mm-hmm.
lot of cars, like you drive them to work, they sit in the parking lot at work all day long. You drive them home, they sit in your driveway all day long
Mm-hmm.
till you drive them the next day. Like they're super underutilized, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah,
why I think like the subscription service, like could that be something that would be like attractive to another demographic or another
yeah.
generation?
And I think there are a few apps out there that let you, rent out your car while it's idle. So people are doing that. I think there's complexity with insurance, but I think insurance is now getting used to all these different different models of re-renting your home like through Airbnb and also re-renting
Okay,
your car now. So like a lot of insurances, they're sort of holding to these different shared concepts.
interesting.
But but to your point there, it's not only being idle. Most people are still, don't they don't touch these apps. They still have their car. They park in the
Yeah,
garage. They park in their office parking lot, or they work from home. It's still just being at home, and it's really being used. When you think about like the lifespan of a car, how much of it is actually on the road versus being how much of the time is the engine on versus off? I'd actually love to know that. If that's 80-20, is it 90-10? Is it it's
well,
really, I don't know, but it's
I'd be willing to bet that Tesla has that information on their cars.
hmm
I'd be
yeah.
willing to bet that they have a lot of data that's coming off
hmm
their cars that a driver doesn't know, but they're collecting for that exact reason.
hmm hmm
Because it's when you think about it, like the car is just about the only thing we buy that is like the worst investment you could do? Like,
Yes, yes. I think yes and no. No,
you need
when
it. You need it. Absolutely, you need it.
needed, but yes, as soon as it comes off the lot, it's already lost its value. During times of COVID, when there was that shortage of cars
Yes,
in inventory, that's when cars were sort of being surprisingly sold as as purchase value from 10 years ago. People were selling it for the same price,
that's right.
or
That's right. Yes.
somewhat close to it. But now, yeah, now that cars are constantly changing, they're turning into really electronics. So every year that iPhone comes out with a new phone, or maybe less than a year, maybe it's every 6 months. I can't even keep up anymore. But they're
Yeah.
really turning into electronics that they're just, as soon as you buy a Tesla or one version of a car or of an electric car, there's next year there's a new type of battery, or there's a new type of powertrain, or a new type of infotainment system, entertainment systems that makes your
It's
previous
amazing.
version not obsolete, but already outdated.
Nothing
So
with something new in it. Yes.
something new. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think buying a car is really you're not doing it for the purpose of investment. I think
No, like you
it's really
kind of
just
need it, right?
it's
If
a
you're
need
not
and a
in a
luxury. Yeah.
yeah, if you're like not in a city center, like you just like to even get to work. It's one of I mean, for most of my career, I had to have a car just to get to work. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
like I lived far enough away from where I lived that any kind of public transportation really didn't work. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm we're going down here, but I want to come back to the drone show
Mm-hmm.
that that you were kind of amazed by. Like, was there something out of that kind of like like grabbed you and said, "Wow, that is something that's going to change things." Like you already said, there's so much development going.
Yeah. I mean, and most of the development, I think, when I saw the drone show, was for the purpose of defense, instead of
Okay,
deploying people over the skies for surveillance, or gathering intelligence. They just deploy a drone with a camera or whatever vision system it has to capture data. But really, also on the commercial side, I think it's being used for really a lot of good functions, different functions that can automate a person's role that might have a shortage, where for industries that might have a shortage, like for example farming. It can go across crop and provide their whatever fluid or that it needs to
really?
keep it healthy. So there's all sorts. Yeah, I came across drones that had they have some sort of payload attached to it, where it can some sort of spreader where it'll just go across across acres of farms. Farmers will buy it to to to, to fertilize their. I think whatever the word is, fertilize their crop. So there's tons of beyond just vision. There's a tons of functionalities that they're being used for, where you can attach payload to it, and it can be used for something like that. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it can be used in logistics. I think is the other big commercial use case, where it's going to be now. We're just in the U.S. they just new law, or I think it's a law, but where you can they call it BD laws, beyond vision. So you can now have drones. Before it was hard to deploy drones beyond your vision. Think of how far you can see a drone in the sky. It was hard to deploy them. You had to really apply for it case by case to have that functionality. But now they're streamlining it, making it easier for for companies to deploy drones beyond your line of sight. So now for logistics, it's going to really just take off. I think that you're going to get, if you're at home and you're ordering Uber Eats, you're going to get your Taco Bell from a drone with a drink.
Really?
Yeah, I think now it's really the future of logistics, of any type of food, cargo, goods, mail. I think if you're getting mail to your door, it can be dropped to your doorstep. You'll be deployed by drone. So standard courier um, mail delivery, these type of sort of just
Amazing.
comparing it to, let's say, an assembly worker on the shop floor. This is how
Yeah.
they're going to be. Drones are going to be automating these positions too.
That when you mentioned like I hadn't thought of like agriculture and farming, but like when you go like out into the Midwest, right? They're gigantic farms that would be obvious for, like you just said, driverless operators as well as the drone operation, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
like it eliminates the physical part. But I didn't know, and it only makes sense that they're going to have payloads. But
Mm-hmm.
imagine like Skip the Dishes gets to your door
Yeah,
with the drone.
yeah.
No, I didn't. Well, it just follows what we were talking about earlier with Amazon and Bezos saying you're going to have your packages delivered by drone. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of an interesting concept for sure. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's not that hard to like I'm thinking now of years ago having the remote control planes. And
Mm-hmm.
occasionally you'll see a person out with them in a field, right? And they'll be running it. And it's like, and now that's what's becoming a form of, shall we say, transportation or delivery
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that probably will become standard.
Yeah. And these two, I think, until mass adoption of drones, because they're these really by I think it's still not a gray area, but it's still the regulation is still being formed around it. And it's not something that you can just because technology has a good use case tomorrow. It's still a very regulated industry with like Transport Canada. You really have to go and work with the certain parameters that they have in their regulations. The weight of the drone, the purpose of the drone, so the application of it, the amount of payload you can attach and carry. Let's say how high it can, so really kind of altitude, how high it can go up in the air. There's tons of these regulations that are still kind of stopping from drones being used. I think if it were me, I think the sky should be full of drones right now, just transporting food back and forth. It would just be, it would reduce congestion. So think about how many
Oh yeah.
drivers we have, delivering food, right?
Well,
That
it's
eliminates all
funny
that congestion. So
when you say that during the pandemic and everybody was working from home, I said eventually all that's going to be on the roads are Amazon trucks and Teslas. But
yeah.
it's like to that point to me, it's like with your legislation now, won't AI be a very effective tool for helping to enable that legislation? Because it'll be able to go quickly through many, many scenarios
Mhm.
that would take us a very long time to go back and research. That's just going to be, they're just going to pull it from data, right? It's so interesting. So your head is already thinking there should be a lot more drones in the air.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the thing is, people still look at a drone, they think they get goosebumps, right? Because of just from
Absolutely.
what
It's still
movies show of
novelty.
drones. It's still novelty, and it's always, it hasn't been used for. So the commercial use cases are not there yet. Drones are still heavily used
Right
in
on.
defense purposes, right? From see drones, they think they're getting being watched over, not in the good way. But I mean, but no, there's tons of logistics for use cases. There's tons of industrial use cases for even surveillance over huge industrial plants. I think about oil and gas plants. Right? Like these things are massive, and you need drones to be able to go and look at all these towering equipment that are almost 100 meters in the sky, right? At 100 meters above ground. So there's tons of inspection, and
Oh, yeah.
you can't wait for your annual or however frequent
Yes.
inspection for the guy to go up all the way to the top of the tower to make sure that this piece of equipment is still working, because you need
I never thought of these.
constant surveillance over tons of industrial plants. Even for let's say like warehouses for logistics, that are just you can just have drones to go around and count inventory. So
Yeah.
the really the use cases for them are infinite. It's a matter of getting your software, getting your company to actually adopt this and go through the pilot test runs to a stage where it makes sense. And, instead of having somebody to go around with a barcode scanner, yes, this drone can go around and scan every box and do real time inventory updates.
And it's so much more quickly. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't do that as a person, right? Like, you just
No.
think the drone could literally just drop at the speed that it's running and can
Mm-hmm.
pick up the barcodes.
Yeah. Like
Wow, I didn't. Wow, that was kind of. So were there? When you say inspection, that's another thing. Like hydro towers, like they've
yeah.
got to put people up on. They could do that by
Mm-hmm.
drone. You're saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh,
Hydro towers,
amazing.
it really, any type of industrial, any type of piece of any tower that has an industrial, or let's even a commercial. So let's think of the CN tower.
Yeah.
When was the last time that thing was inspected? The exterior of it. Besides a great music video where he was sitting on top of it, I don't really know the last time that thing was really inspected. So it can it can be used for even to the extent of window cleaning. Think about window cleaning, how we're putting people up. They're risking highly paid, actually really good, well-paying jobs because they're really risking their lives for us putting this up, going up on the 50th floor and cleaning the exterior window. But think about all these people that are going up there and how that this functionality can be replaced with just with an end effector. You give it a fake hand and it can go and it should be able to wipe down windows, right? So
Absolutely, like that. I mean, all we're limited by is creativity here. Like that's crazy to me.
yeah.
It's so they undoubtedly have things to be able to go underwater to inspect things as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah, I mean, you have submerged, you have underwater drones as well. Probably not the same. Let's say, like maybe it has to be somewhat waterproof. So maybe the mechanical, electrical has to be like somewhat different or covered in a way, so it doesn't fail once it just gets dropped in the water. But I think yeah, the inspection of underwater, tons of surveillance is done on the seafloor. I think a lot of it, they're not necessarily drones, but there are underwater autonomous vehicles that are going around and patrolling and doing surveillance of the seafloor for let's say they want to lay a new cable line or just general maritime research.
I know. You know what? Like that's a whole area today that you've talked about that I haven't really like. The Jeff Bezos comment stuck in my head, and I
Mm-hmm.
just from the point of view of how it will make people think differently, and you've just expanded on how they're going to think differently. Like agriculture would just change the farms.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could literally have like your driverless tractor, combine harvesting your crop all
Mm-hmm.
day and all night long
Mm-hmm.
with no like outside of having somebody there for the operational part like you were saying that's the part that will be the change, right?
Mm-hmm. I
It's
think
kind of
that's sorry, let me cut you off. That's really the best use case is that where your uptime leads to dollars, right? Like so if you're if you're not you don't have somebody behind that combine fertilizing spraying your crop or then you're losing out on you're losing out on you're losing out on potential dollars so that where you can sell your crop to the next person in the supply chain of agriculture. So I think these are really the use cases where if you don't have a person behind that, if that vehicle is not running, then you're losing a dollar, you're losing money. Then I think that's the best use case for autonomy. And that's not nice to have. It's really a necessity.
no that's well it makes me laugh when you say that because I can remember going by like recreational vehicle places and they
Mm-hmm.
having like literally it seemed rows and rows of these recreational vehicles for people to rent. And I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking that would just be a nightmare, thinking you have all this inventory that's just sitting on the lot waiting for somebody to come and get it.
Mm-hmm.
So I get, like I said, using that. So I'm going to turn a little bit here because in the last conversation, I think I kind of said something to the fact of you provide, like in having conversation with you, that our future is in really good hands
Mm-hmm.
because of the, like, how you kind of, like, I'll say very encouragingly, very like all this stuff, like what you just went through in like literally 2 minutes about what drones could do. Um, how do you see, and now that you're in technology as part of your world, what do you see things shifting? 'Cause, like, you hear a lot that, like, I mean, okay, AI, everybody's going to lose their job. That's not true. It's going to be
Yeah,
different.
different.
Um, but like with drones, you mentioned about mail delivery. So like, well, most people I think go to super boxes now anyway, but it's like, how do you see the shaping for our future? Like you just said, like with almost excitement in your voice, we should see drones in the air all the time. It shouldn't be just a novelty that we go and see a light show with a bunch of them choreographed to music. Like,
Yeah,
what do you see, like, as far as like what brings you excitement for what's coming?
I mean, being able to see, in just commercial civilian use cases, being able to walk outside your, your apartment or your house and you just see a drone flying and carrying, carrying a taco, like really just something that, that everyone can relate to. It doesn't have to be, something that, is a specific business function that, let's say it's used for surveillance of, hiding something.
Right, right.
Just being able to do skip the dishes, through the air, at, not so high, but, at a height in the sky that, you can see the drop. I think that's, it's, because think about every time a plane flies over you, you're looking up. Nobody, every time a plane flies, I don't know anybody that ignores it because
No, no.
something is flying through the sky, and anything that's in the sky, people get messed up, right? Think about the air itself when you have all the jets flying back and forth.
We
People.
we just had the air show here in Abbotsford,
Mm.
and those jets flew by our, like, we're really close to the airport here in Abbotsford, and I never heard them so loud as this year. Like they shook the
Wow.
house.
Yeah.
Like they're, and you try and, like, you see the movies and you see how they're jumping around in their cockpits trying to see each other, and like we have the whole sky to look at and we can't find them. Like they're going so fast. So to your point, everyone looks in the sky, especially if they make a lot of noise or
Mm-hmm.
are pretty cool. Like, I guess they're still subsonic because they're not breaking the sound barrier, but it's still like kind of an amazing thing. But to your point, Savish, when someone sees a drone in the air right now, I think they're thinking Big Brother's watching. They're
Yeah.
paranoid. Like it's like,
Yeah.
what are they checking out that I'm doing now?
Yeah. What are they looking over, right?
We
What are they?
haven't yet seen that skip the dishes, or the box of pizza in a drone that's coming to the door.
Yeah. Even a box of pizza. Imagine you see a box of pizza flying through the air with carried by a drone, right? Everybody would follow that pizza because they want to know
They
what,
would
who ordered
freak
that.
out.
They freak
Absolutely.
out, right?
And you think that's close?
I don't think it's close.
Okay.
I don't think it's close, but um, it will get there because the way that drones are being used at scale for other, kind of industrial use cases, defense use cases, I think it's slowly tapping into logistics use cases, and it's getting into more kind of day-to-day, consumer related applications. So I think it's consumer related part of it is not close, but drones are being used for other applications that are not being used by the day-to-day person.
So have you seen anything like somebody, a drone doing a building's windows? Have you seen anything like that before? Like I think that's an automatic one that I'm surprised we're not doing already.
You know, I think that's a great business idea. I think I really think that's the greatest idea. Think about.
I think it's amazing.
I think it's amazing. I think that should be patented right now.
So you have to leave.
Exactly. We should turn off this podcast and patent this before we just go live.
Well, even like you were saying
Yeah.
about hydro, doing inspection on the hydro towers, like that's got to be a big thing that they do out in the wilderness. Not only the effort to get up there and the danger of being in the heights, but even the health aspects of being around big power lines and stuff.
High voltage,
That would be
yeah.
that would be like an optional. Maybe somebody listening can plug into something to that point.
Yeah.
Are you in what you're doing dealing with drones at all? Like, was that part of why you went to this drone show, or like was it just
Yes,
interest?
I was scouting the drone sector because it's becoming a big sector. There's a lot of investment. Let's say, the regulation is very pro drone these days.
Interesting.
In the U.S. And
It makes so much sense.
Mhm.
You know
And-
what? Drones
yeah.
could enable people to move out of the city. Like one of the things that I think, and I'll say the Canadian government has not done a good job of. I don't think it's even been a mandate. But we spend a lot into the city centers, right? Like literally, what is it? I think 90% of Canada lives within 200 miles of the border.
Well, the border, yeah. I think it's something like 75.
It's crazy. It's a crazy
like
number, right? And we have this vast land that, unless you're like kind of a bit of an outsider, people just don't tend to go to. And I'm thinking with drones, that's just wide open space that would enable that to be more easily, say, populated.
Yeah,
and take advantage of it, right?
Yeah, accessibility of moving goods around by drone. If you're
like to send a drone into downtown Toronto or Vancouver in the buildings and everything, there's some challenges with maneuvering, right? But like up near James Bay, like there's nothing up there. I'm not trying to offend people that live up there, but I mean in the rural areas.
It's a very, it's an under-invested area, the rural areas. It's not, it's always sort of, it's not the front and center for investment or by,
for sure.
Or, federal or provincial level. I think, a lot of it goes into city centers and then goes out to urban areas, even though Canada, as you say, is the second largest country in the world by land mass, right? So land area. So why don't we have more? Why are we not spread out more? Why are we always dense around a few cities? Why are we not people spread out? Why don't we build more to the rest of the country?
Well, I'm thinking from even an Amazon perspective. Like they could deliver into the more rural areas by drone way easier than truck, right?
Yeah.
They could do their same day in rural areas even. Well, that's just
it's unbelievable. And I think maybe it hasn't taken off because maybe a driver can hit 10 stops in a matter of, let's say, within a 5-kilometer radius if they're if they're downtown. But in rural areas they got to drive 10 kilometers to drop one shipment off. They're not going to do that, right? It doesn't, doesn't work.
Well, it's also one of those. It's a barrier to entry from an infrastructure perspective. This is one of the things that I'm kind of amazed by the EV world, electric vehicle world, and I think I'll have to put a lot of this, like with Starlink, that Musk has done with the EV world. Like you're seeing a lot of stations for electricity. I mean, they're nothing like gas stations, but that infrastructure to enable that has grown massively in a relatively short time. And that, to me, that was one of the staggering barriers to entry for an electric vehicle, was just the fact that, like, unless you're like, I'll call it an eccentric and don't mind plotting out where you're going to drive to and find out where the next electric center is, which none of us want to do, right? We just want to have gas wherever we are.
Yeah. Always, where's the nearest gas station? Okay, we'll go there.
Like we would never think about like plotting a trip around where gas stations were, but with an EV vehicle, you kind of had to do it. But as that infrastructure becomes more in place, now whether that will continue is a good question. But I don't know. It's just you've brought a bunch of neat things here forward. So so come back to my question because you're excited about the drone world. Are there other things that you're seeing that are going are obviously AI is changing enormously. Um, I'm going to say, is your call it your demographic probably excited by it because you're adopting it in a very quick way? Um, are there other things that you're seeing that are yeah, this is going to happen? Like drones to me is one that you've just offered a whole bunch of stuff
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
could be. And I know I'm holding you back from getting that patent done on the window washing, but
The window cleaning, yeah, window lighting. Or
are there other things that you're saying we're this is exciting stuff that's kind of going on that's enabling a lot. So I even think of the construction part. To me, that's a very
Mhm.
neat thing about I've heard of trucking and working on driverless trucking, like the
Mhm.
distance diving trucking, but I haven't heard much outside of now you mentioned the agriculture. But
Yeah, I think it really, and also like going all the way to all these off-highway call it applications. They're tricky, right? Because with a
sure.
commercial vehicle like a truck, you're just got you're going forward or back, right?
Yes.
You're in drive or reverse, right? There's really nothing else. And same thing with an excavator. You're driving reverse, but you have all these different movements, right? With the arm and butt of the excavator. So you really need to, for just small wins, just to actually incrementally get there. I've seen a lot of, I'm seeing dump trucks for mining
Okay.
being
Yeah.
being retrofitted that have a specific route. They pick up the dirt one station, they drive it, dump it, go back, pick it up, drive it, dump it. So it's just specific routes, and there's not so many different functions to it. So I think it's just incremental. It'll get there. Even just having automating the function of of a dump of a dump truck. I think that's really the current state of art, and then getting into all these more complex functions for different machines.
Interesting. No, there's so much kind of going there. So with your world, and you've been in this now, this new kind of world for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
You do a lot of traveling, you said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is there any other things that kind of wow, they're making a lot of progress in this area. They kind of didn't know that was going on. That
Mm-hmm.
you've kind of seen that's not necessarily even related to your work, but just in through your travels, right?
Yeah, I mean every country is leading and behind on different sectors. So um, I went to I went to I've been always gone to a bunch of shows, and over the years I've gone to a bunch of shows in Europe. Uh, I recently went to some shows in Asia, in China, Japan, Korea, to get really get a taste of there. And they're very advanced industrial economies. Very, China's really leading in all these in many sectors, with their rapid development, and they throw so many people and money at developing new products, and really just being ahead. Just with automotive, right? China has so many car OEMs, and now they're going in, they're exporting vehicles all over the world. 20, 30 years ago, we didn't really think of you never thought China having its own car brand.
No,
And now
that's right.
China has produced so many companies that have cars all over the world now. Not in Canada, US yet, but one day I'm sure we'll come. Most of the shows I've gone to lately have been really all in the US. I think every country, or even within a country, you have hubs Detroit has always been automotive. San Francisco has been just general tech and all sorts of tech. And Houston's been oil and gas and energy. The East Coast has been, I think there's in Boston, a biotech hub and a robotics hub. And then you go to other countries in Europe and everywhere. Germany's always been traditional, center of automotive and other types of manufacturing sectors. Sort of come now is really strong in automotive. Korea and Japan have been strong in automotive traditionally. And now there's a lot of competition from China these days. You go and you just learn at what stage of development every country's in terms of sectors and focus. Where is and a lot of it is obviously private sector, but ultimately, the government regulations and policy are really the driving factor and enable companies to let sectors flourish or not. So if we have Canada's always been natural resource heavy. So we've always had a good mining, right?
Yes.
And oil and gas. We've had tons of oil and gas. And now obviously with tariffs, now I actually don't know if it's confirmed that, but tariffs now Canada's looking at different sectors and different countries to sell into a little more than before. But at the end of the day, really the infrastructure and push from policy, government policy is what I think keep countries, different sectors, above one another.
For sure. Do you encounter? I mean, it's still 6 months since it started to happen, but you mentioned tariffs. Do you encounter, shall we say, challenge, concern, anything with regards to that, or is it still pretty early for any of that to kind of come into industry?
Of course, it's affecting. Yeah, it's definitely affecting businesses that, let's say, like steel. Steel companies have been. I think that was one that were the most impacted to sell to the U.S. But I think that you should be able to that those steel companies from Hamilton should have customers in Canada too. You should see
Okay.
I think that's the other angle of it, right? When you're 80-90% of your exports from the U.S., you're at the mercy of the regulation change.
Sure.
And whether that actually favors Americans or Canadians or not is a different question. It could be more expensive for Americans to buy
Interesting.
certain good that's made of steel, right? But at the end of the day, that the Canadian steelmaker, that doesn't really affect it. So when you're over reliant on one export market and you're not able to sell it domestically, that's the fundamental issue here. It's not really the tariff. The tariff, of course, is going to be an impact, but that's a byproduct of not being able to sell it in your own, sell it domestically, sell it in your own backyard.
I like that comment, Siavash. That's an interesting comment in saying that, because I haven't heard that before, in the sense that, because I mean, in the global sense, we're all all businesses are trying to take advantage of what can be done elsewhere in the globe.
Sure.
But when you can't sell your own product in your own country, that does raise a question. It's interesting that you brought that up.
And I'm sure, of course, Canadian steelmakers in Hamilton or wherever they are,
sure,
business locally. But when businesses, when 25% gets slapped on tomorrow, and all of a sudden your entire business changes, you have to lay off half your workforce, or stop production for whatever reason. You should have been able to. You should have had a plan before be able to adapt to that, right?
No, I like.
Or you're always at the mercy of a regulation, right?
Well,
so
that that is kind of a fact, right? Like that is you're at the mercy of a regulation, not at the regulation of a market, so to speak. I like that. That's
it's just trying to look at things more practically and trying to cut out the emotion. I think a lot of people are getting very, you know, emotional over this, and we're not looking at it practically. Like that's all.
and 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 that statement right there is the one that will put me hope in youth in developing for our future, like what you just said, being practical. I think that's a pretty big part of the challenge that I think we have is, and I'll call it sometimes, although it's lost that ring, but the sensationalism of the news. And we don't even use that word anymore because we have news in our hands all day long. But I think it still serves in many ways the same purpose, except it's more massive or to more of the massive than ever. And it alarms people, right? And you've kind of just brought that back down to almost boots on the ground in the sense that, like, you still have to be practical, right? And I think that's a pretty big thing to kind of like. I'm glad to hear that coming from the next demographic, the next generation is like, wow, that makes a lot of sense to be practical. Weren't we raised that way?
Yeah, practical, pragmatic, however you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've taken a bunch of your time here. This has been a fascinating discussion as it was last time.
Absolutely.
And I'm always thinking your curiosity is interesting. I'm gonna the drones have blown me away today. But in kind of wrapping up, anything that you'd like to kind of like add? Like I know that we haven't really discussed it, but you've got a lot of ideas that you'd like to put into, like you're thinking of a book. You've got some obviously ideas as far as what industry and where it's coming from, just in drones alone here that we've talked about. But you see that a lot, I think, in your travels and in what you're doing today, because that's kind of what you're looking at. You've got technology available probably like never before in history. And I mean, we hit on AI and we hit on drones, but like you can go into robotics. I mean, how that's affecting us society and socially, and the media puts that all together. Do you have any like closing things? Anything you'd like to wrap up with today?
I think we. I mean, first of all, yeah, I love the open talk on technology and different markets and just how I really envision this podcast to be. And I love every minute of it. Anything specific? Not really. That comes to mind. I mean, we sort of covered so much, but I think yeah, if we want to just go back to the whole concept of AI, I think one thing I was going to mention actually during this was that I think soft skills, and maybe I think we did talk about it that we talked about. I think soft skills, talk about that human element of sales, but I think soft skills are something that are just generally going to be hard to replace, whether that's sales or anything that needs like a personal a relationship to it. Like there's tons of apps now that are coming out that are no code. They call them no code develop. So you sort of just give it your ideas and it'll essentially write the app for you. I have never used it, but that's what it's being marketed as.
Wow. Okay.
So if you want to write a software, a mobile app, or let's say a web app, or whatever, there's apps for you to develop those apps without being programmers, without actually no code. So these things are nothing replaced by software developers. I mean, every software company has skilled developers, software engineers, software architects, whatever. But slowly, as these apps start to take off for no code and generally AI, generative AI, machine learning, LLM, all these different subsets of AI take off for companies. I think still what holds true is going back to fundamentals, things that can't be replaced by AI. Just even soft skills or even just traditional work like construction and training. AI can't replace a broken pipe. You'll always need a plumber.
Yep.
I think now that, there's always been a new generation trades has not been, let's say, sexy, but always changed on trades. And now I think people are slowly looking back on trades and thinking, "Shit, maybe, I'm getting, my job is there. I'm not going to have a job in 5 years. So, you know what, actually, let's go stick to the basics of what people will still need and what you cannot have replaced unless you have a robot that comes in and replaces your pipe." But I think that's still, years away.
No, I like that comment about soft skills because I think it's important, and I think that when you brought the trades into that, I think it's also a very interesting thing because, I mean, to your point, even when I was raised, it was like it just you're not a mechanic. Go be an engineer. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
just it was like I think you said like they
From
didn't
done.
have
Yeah, from,
yeah
yeah.
it didn't they didn't have the shiny kind of like
Mm-hmm.
this is what you
Fatigue.
want to do
Yeah.
prestige of it exactly prestige of it. And what's so interesting is the cars still need to be fixed, plumbing still needs to be done,
Mm-hmm.
electrical needs to be done, and we're still building houses by building houses.
Yeah,
And
we still need mechanics. Those are, and the mechanics like your doctor, it's like your or somebody that you trust. And you always use them
abs-
as long as you have your car and you're close enough to the mechanic you can go to.
and I'm wondering whether this whole AI will help to drive a world in back to in the trades, because one of the things that I find, and I said this before, but when you're unplug somebody's drain in a house as a plumber, you have instant almost gratification. You've helped somebody. They're stuck, right? You've just released their drain. They're super happy with you. They're very like you've made somebody else's day. They're like and in this kind of other world that we went into, and I'll call it the academic university kind of learning to do kind of different things. Many times in the corporate world, you don't get that, if not for weeks, you don't get it for months, if ever sometimes. Like your project just goes on forever, right? Like you might get a comment of thank you for doing this, but you don't get the success or the feeling that I just unplugged that person's drain. Like they couldn't go to bed last night because they're so concerned about like what am I going to do for the kitchen because they can't use the sink, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you
Or
came in, yes,
or your toilet being clogged, right?
oh,
Something,
exactly, right.
you had a big dinner and now the toilet's clogged, right? So
And I sometimes think that even I think all this contributes even to like you said soft skills, but contributes to like the mental kind of anguish, the mental health that we're around because we're not getting that exchange because many have spent a lot of time in this higher kind of, well, we called it higher, but I don't know that it was higher kind of education. We learned to think in many ways, but it wasn't like, as you said, those soft skills. And I sometimes wonder whether AI will help to bring those back because we won't be spending as much time doing those things that many of us didn't want to do in the first place, like writing the
Mhm.
cover letter for our CV, or like you
Mhm.
said, doing the research, right? Like trying to figure out like when you can ask a question, like I said, like how many people live within 100 kilometers of the border of the US, right? Like you can find that question out instantly today.
Mhm.
Like it's a relatively simple, but you don't have to go to the library. You just instantly. And will that give you more time to kind of go out and have a conversation with someone or
Mhm.
like to have that social part that you're saying is not going to go away. We need the relational part in the business aspect. When we're dealing with something serious, we're dealing with something with means a lot, you need that relationship.
Yeah. And AI is going to teach us to be interpersonal again. Actually, contrary to what it does, it's going to teach people to be how to be interpersonal again because it's going to do a lot of the legwork, you you know, cumbersome thinking, and let us to do more of the higher end kind of big picture thinking and
Savish, I love
talking.
that, how you just said. AI is going to teach us how to be relational.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, you see, you just lived up to the whole thing that I said before. Like, there's a lot of hope in our coming generations. So don't worry. current demographics and things like that. I think it's a very, very cool thing.
Yeah.
Well, Siavash, we've covered a lot of ground. I took a lot of time from you today,
No,
but
it was a pleasure.
this is always a pleasure for me. I love talking with you because you're curious, and like I said, the drone thing. Wow, that just sent me down a whole another path.
So yeah, it sent me on the path too. So
You got to go and get that patent done.
yeah,
I'll go on it with you.
Yeah,
Anyway, I should
absolutely.
probably wrap things up here. I thank you all for watching today and
Thank you.
listening. And I was going to say it's been a great chance to have again Siavash Kianpour join us today for another really interesting conversation about all the things that are going on in the technology world. And with that, I hope you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Better than not, you'll hear more guests like Siavash and talk about a lot of interesting subjects. With that, Siavash, goodbye.
Thank
Stay
you,
on for a
Doug.
minute, and thank you for joining us today. Bye for now. Are we on? Good. Welcome to the Better Than Not podcast. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. But when we at least do something, we know it's almost always better than not.